The paint was still wet on the front door when my phone buzzed. I was standing in the kitchen, admiring the new countertops I'd picked out myself. Everything was perfect. Everything was finally mine. Then I saw her name flash across the screen. Marianne. My daughter-in-law. I answered on the third ring. Hello. Oh good, you're there already, she said like she'd been tracking me. Listen, my parents want to see the new place. And my sisters. And their kids. Actually, my whole family. We're driving up now. Should be there by lunchtime. Blinked. Today. Yeah, didn't I mention it? Anyway, there's about 18 of us. Maybe 20. We'll need beds for everyone. Oh, and can you pick up groceries? We're staying through next weekend. Thanks. The call ended before I could say another word. I stood there holding the phone, staring at the empty rooms around me. I hadn't even unpacked my clothes yet. My toothbrush was still in a cardboard box somewhere. But Marianne had already decided this was her vacation spot. Not a visit. Takeover. I walked slowly to the window and looked outside. The lake was calm. The trees were green and quiet. This cottage had taken me 8 years to afford. 8 years of saving every dollar. I'd worked extra shifts at the hospital. I'd skipped trips and new shoes and restaurant meals. Also, I could have one place that was truly mine. Not shared. Not borrowed. And now, 2 hours from now, 20 people I barely knew were going to fill every corner of it. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. Instead, I went to the drawer and pulled out a notebook. I opened it to the first page and wrote one word at the top. Plan. For years, I had lived in my son Danny's house. After my husband passed, Danny said, "Mom, just stay with us. It'll be easier." I thought he meant easier for me. But really, it was easier for them. I cooked, cleaned. I watched the kids when they went out. I folded laundry that wasn't mine and washed dishes I didn't use. Marianne never said thank you. She just added more to the list. Can you pick up my dry cleaning? Can you make dinner for 12? My book club is coming over. I did it all without complaining. Because I thought that's what good mothers do. But after a while I realized something. I wasn't living there. I was working there. And I wasn't getting paid. That's why I bought this cottage. I needed a place where I could breathe. Where I could sit down without someone asking me to get up and do something. But even before I moved in, I knew Marianne wouldn't let me have it. She treated everything I owned like it was hers too. I started getting the cottage ready. I swept the floors. I wiped down the tables. I put fresh sheets on the beds, even though I hadn't slept in them yet. I knew Marianne's mother had back problems. She'd complain if the mattress was too soft. I filled the kitchen with snacks and drinks. I set out extra blankets because someone always got cold at night. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because I needed them to think everything was normal. That I was the same old mom who always said yes. But while I cleaned, I also made calls. Called the town office. Called a lawyer. I printed papers and tucked them into a folder. By the time I heard the first car door slam outside, I was ready. Not the way they thought. But ready in my own way. The cars pulled up one after another. Doors opened. Kids jumped out. Coolers were dragged across the gravel. Marianne's father waved at me, but didn't say hello. Her sister walked right past me into the house. Nobody knocked. Nobody asked if this was a good time. They just came in like they'd been here 100 times before. Someone opened the fridge and started moving my food around. Someone else turned on the TV. A kid ran upstairs without taking off his muddy shoes. Marianne walked in last, carrying a bag of chips and nothing else. She looked around and smiled. "This is perfect, Mom," she said. "You did great." I didn't answer. I just watched them spread out like ants at a picnic. They took the bedrooms. They claimed the couches. One of her brothers asked where the beer was. Another asked if I had phone chargers. Within 10 minutes, my peaceful cottage had turned into a loud, messy camp. I stood in the hallway, holding my small suitcase. I had planned to sleep in the biggest bedroom, the one with the window facing the water. But Marianne's parents had already put their things on the bed. I didn't argue. I picked up my bag and carried it to the tiny room at the end of the hall. It used to be a storage closet. Now it had a cot and a lamp. Marianne saw me walk by. She gave me a little smile. "You don't mind, right? They're older. They need the space." He nodded. But inside I felt something shift. This wasn't kindness. This was control. And I was done being controlled. I closed the door to my little room. I sat on the cot. And I pulled out the folder I'd been working on all morning. The papers inside were neat and organized. At the top of the first page it said, "Guest rental agreement." That night I cooked dinner for everyone. Pasta, salad, garlic bread. 22 plates. I didn't ask for help. Nobody offered. They ate quickly, talking loudly, laughing at jokes I wasn't part of. When they finished, they left their plates on the table and went outside to sit by the fire. I stayed inside and washed every dish by myself. While I scrubbed, I noticed the receipt from the grocery store sitting on the counter. $214. I'd spent it all that afternoon, buying food I didn't pick out for people who didn't thank me. I folded the receipt carefully and tucked it into my folder. Later, someone knocked over a plant on the porch. Dirt spilled everywhere. Nobody cleaned it up. Marianne's nephew tried to fix the wobbly door handle and broke it completely. He just shrugged and walked away. I didn't say anything. I just wrote it all down in my notebook. Every broken thing. Every mess. Every moment they treated my home like a hotel. By the fourth day I was tired. Not from working. From watching. They used all my towels and left them in piles. They ate all my food and didn't replace it. Someone cracked the bathroom mirror. Someone else stained the couch with red wine. Nobody apologized. Nobody noticed. Marianne walked past me in the kitchen one morning and said, "You're so lucky to have all this space. We should do this every summer." I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I realized she didn't see me as a person. She saw me as a tool. Something useful. Something she could use whenever she wanted. That's when I made my final decision. I walked outside and called the number I'd saved in my phone 3 days earlier. A woman answered. "Mrs. Pruitt," she said. "Are you ready to move forward?" "Yes," I told her. "I'm ready." The next morning I woke up early. The house was still quiet. I made coffee but not for them. Just for me. Then I went to the dining table and laid out 22 pieces of paper. Each one was the same. At the top it said, "Cottage rental agreement." It listed the rules. It listed the cost. $150 per person per night. Meals not included. Damages billed separately. Security deposit required before checkout. I placed a pen next to each paper. Then I taped a sign to the front door. It said, "This is private property. All guests must sign rental agreement to stay." When Marianne came downstairs, she saw the papers first. She picked one up, read it, then looked at me. "What is this?" she asked. "A rental agreement," I said calmly. She laughed. "You're joking." I didn't smile. "No, I'm not." Her face changed. The smile disappeared. "You're seriously charging us?" "Yes," I said. "This is my home. If you want to stay here, you follow my rules. And you pay." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "This is ridiculous. We're family." "You're Marianne's family," I said. "Not mine. And family doesn't show up unannounced. Family doesn't take over someone's home. Family doesn't break things and leave messes and expect someone else to fix it all." Danny came down the stairs. He saw the papers. He saw my face. "Mom," he said quietly. "What are you doing?" "What I should have done years ago," I said. Then I walked to the door and opened it. A man in a uniform stepped inside. Deputy Lawson. I'd called him the night before. He nodded at me, then looked around the room. "Morning," he said. "I'm here to make sure everything's clear." Ma'am, you want to explain the situation. I handed him a copy of the agreement. Everyone here was informed they'd need to follow house rules. They haven't. And they haven't paid. Marianne's mouth dropped open. You called the police on us. I called the county, I corrected. This is about property rights, not punishment. Deputy Lawson looked at the group slowly gathering in the hallway. Folks, this is private property. The owner has the right to set terms. You can sign the agreement and pay, or you can leave. Those are your options. Marianne's sister muttered something under her breath. Her father crossed his arms and glared at me. But nobody moved. Danny stepped closer. Mom, please. Don't do this. I looked at my son. My sweet boy who used to hold my hand in the grocery store. I love you, Danny, I said softly. But I'm done being used. Deputy Lawson cleared his throat. I'll need signed agreements from everyone staying here by end of day. Or I'll be back to make sure the property is cleared. He handed me a folder. Inside were copies of everything. Calls I'd made. The emails I'd sent. The timeline showing I'd warned them in advance. I'd done everything right. And they knew it. Marianne's mother looked at the paper in her hand like it was poison. You're really going to charge your own family? She asked. I'm charging people who treated my home like a dumping ground, I said. If you'd asked nicely, if you'd helped, if you'd shown any respect at all, we wouldn't be here. But you didn't. One of the cousins laughed bitterly. This is insane. I turned to him. You broke my door handle. You spilled juice on my carpet. You used my internet and my electricity and my food. And you didn't say thank you once. That's what's insane. The room went silent. Nobody had an answer. Deputy Lawson looked at me. You want me to start collecting signatures, ma'am? He nodded. Yes, please. And just like that, the power shifted. They weren't in control anymore. Nobody signed. Instead, they started packing. Suitcases zipped. Bags were thrown into cars. Kids were told to hurry up. Marianne's father didn't look at me as he carried his things outside. Her mother shook her head like I'd disappointed her. But I didn't feel guilty. Felt light. One of the teenagers yelled something rude as they drove away. I didn't react. I just stood on the porch, holding my folder, watching them leave one by one. Danny was the last to go. He stopped at the door and turned back. I don't know who you are anymore, he said. I looked at him. I'm the same person I've always been. You just never noticed. He didn't reply. He just walked out and got in the car. Marian didn't even say goodbye. She just glared at me through the window as they pulled away. And then they were gone. The cottage was quiet again. I stood in the doorway for a long time, listening to the birds. The air smelled like pine and fresh water. I walked through the rooms slowly. Beds unmade. Towels on the floor. Trash left on the counters. They'd left it all behind like a final insult. But I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just pulled out my phone and made one more call. By the next afternoon, a cleaning crew arrived. 2 kind women who didn't ask questions. They worked quickly and I paid them well. While they cleaned, I took pictures of everything. The broken mirror. The stained couch. The cracked tile in the bathroom. I wrote it all down. Then I sent Marianne an email. The subject line said, "Invoice for damages and unpaid fees." I attached the rental agreement. I attached the photos. I attached the receipt from the grocery store. And I waited. Days passed. No reply. No apology. Just silence. I didn't mind. Silence was better than fake smiles and empty words. I spent my mornings walking by the lake. I spent my afternoons reading on the porch. I cooked meals just for me. I slept in the big bedroom with a water view. At night I sat outside and watched the stars. A neighbor stopped by with cookies. Another invited me to a weekend market. They didn't know what had happened. They just knew I was new. And they were kind. For the first time in years I felt free. Not lonely. Not guilty. Free. I planted flowers in the front garden. I hung curtains I'd been saving. I put up a small wooden sign by the door. It said, "This home is protected. Visitors welcome by invitation only." A week later, Marian called. Then again. Then 5 more times. I didn't answer. She left one voicemail. "We need to talk. You're being childish." I deleted it. Danny texted me. "Can we please work this out?" I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I was done explaining. I'd spent years trying to make them understand. Trying to make them see me. But they never did. One afternoon, I sat in the garden pulling weeds. A butterfly landed on my hand. I stayed still watching it rest. And I thought about all the years I'd spent making space for everyone else. All the times I'd said yes when I wanted to say no. All the moments I'd swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. I thought about Marianne and her family, walking into my home like they owned it, taking my bed, eating my food, breaking my things. And I realized, they only did it because I let them. For so long I'd been afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of being called selfish. Afraid of losing my son. But in trying to keep everyone happy, I'd lost myself. And that was the worst loss of all. Marian called again last night. And this time I answered. "Hello," I said. There was a pause. Then her voice, tight and cold. "So you're really going to do this? You're really going to cut us off?" "I'm not cutting you off," I said. "I'm just not letting you walk all over me anymore. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we hurt you." Took a breath. "You did hurt me. You took my home for granted. You treated me like a servant. And when I asked for respect, you laughed." She was quiet. "I didn't think you'd actually care." "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't think. You didn't ask. You just assumed. And I'm done with that." She hung up. I set the phone down and looked around my cottage. The floors were clean. The windows were open. The air smelled like lavender. And I felt no guilt. No regret. Just peace. Danny sent me a letter 2 days ago. Came in the mail, written by hand. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't realize how much I'd been carrying. He said he wanted to visit, alone, and talk. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in a drawer. I haven't decided if I'll respond. But I'm not in a hurry. Some apologies take time to mean something. And some bridges need space before they can be rebuilt. For now I'm focusing on me. I wake up when I want. I eat what I like. I spend my days however I choose. The cottage is still mine. The deed has my name on it. No one else's. And when I sit on the porch at sunset, I don't feel lonely. Feel whole. Because respect doesn't need an invitation. Just needs a boundary. And finally, I built one strong enough to hold. I placed the letter back in the drawer next to the folder of signed papers and photos. Then I walked outside and stood by the water. The lake was calm. The sky was orange and pink. And I realized something I'd known all along but had been too scared to say out loud. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their understanding. I just needed my peace. And now I had it. The wind chimes hanging from the porch started to ring softly. Smiled. And I walked back inside, locking the door behind me. Not to keep anyone out, but to keep myself safe. My home. My rules. My life. Finally,